What if open world isn't Zelda's final form? What if the revolution that began in 2017 with Breath of the Wild, the same revolution that reshaped adventure gaming and earned countless Game of the Year awards, was just the beginning of something even more transformative? Because after two consecutive open-world masterpieces that together have sold over 40 million copies, Nintendo faces a question that could define the next decade of gaming. What comes after you've already changed everything? The Legend of Zelda didn't always mean sprawling landscapes and complete freedom. For over 30 years, from the original 1986 game through Skyward Sword in 2011, the series thrived on curated experiences. Players progressed through carefully designed sequences, unlocking new areas as they acquired specific items. The hookshot opened shortcuts. The bow solved puzzles. The bombs revealed hidden passages. Each tool had purpose, and each dungeon tested mastery of these tools in increasingly clever combinations. Then Breath of the Wild launched alongside the Nintendo Switch in March 2017 and shattered every assumption about what Zelda could be. No lengthy tutorial dungeon, no forced item progression. Players could sprint directly to Hyrule Castle and face Calamity Ganon with 3 hearts and a tree branch if they possessed the skill. The game trusted players completely, offering tools through the Sheikah Slate's runes that worked anywhere, anytime, in countless combinations. Magnesis manipulated metal objects. Stasis froze items in time. Cryonis created ice pillars from water. Remote bombs destroyed obstacles. These abilities, combined with a physics engine and chemistry system that respected consistent rules, enabled unprecedented creative problem solving. The success was immediate and undeniable. Breath of the Wild received perfect scores from numerous publications, won Game of the Year at the Game Awards 2017, and sold over 31 million copies. Critics praised its sense of exploration, environmental storytelling, and respect for player intelligence. The game influenced an entire generation of open-world design, with developers across the industry studying its approach to emergent gameplay and environmental interactivity. Tears of the Kingdom arrived in May 2023 and doubled down on this formula. Instead of abandoning the open-world structure, Nintendo expanded it vertically with Sky Islands in the underground depths, while introducing abilities that pushed player agency even further. Ultra Hand enabled construction of vehicles, bridges, and contraptions limited only by imagination. Fuse transformed weapon durability from controversial mechanic into creative opportunity. Ascend revolutionized vertical traversal. Recall manipulated time for specific objects. The game sold 10 million copies in its first 3 days, becoming one of the fastest-selling Nintendo games ever. 2 consecutive masterpieces. 2 revolutionary approaches to open-world design. Over 40 million players exploring the same Hyrule across 6 years. The question isn't whether these games succeeded. They clearly did. The question is whether open world represents Zelda's permanent identity or simply its current chapter. Because something interesting happens when a genre-defining formula becomes established. The revolutionary becomes expected. The surprising becomes familiar. Players who marveled at climbing any surface in Breath of the Wild found climbing routine in Tears of the Kingdom. The thrill of discovering shrines diminished when players knew to search for them. Even Ultra Hand's remarkable construction system, as innovative as it was, eventually became another tool in the box rather than a constant source of wonder. This isn't criticism, it's the natural life cycle of innovation. The first time players paraglided from a mountaintop and spotted a mysterious structure in the distance, it felt magical. By the 100th time, it became mechanical. The game remained excellent, but familiarity erodes novelty. And Zelda has always thrived on novelty. Consider the franchise's history. Ocarina of Time didn't iterate on a link to the past. It rebuilt Zelda in 3 dimensions with Z-targeting, context-sensitive actions, and a time travel narrative structure. Majora's Mask didn't expand Ocarina's Hyrule. It transported players to Termina with a 3-day cycle that created urgency and consequence. Wind Waker didn't refine previous formulas. It introduced cel-shaded graphics and oceanic exploration that divided fans before winning them over. Twilight Princess brought wolf transformations in the Twilight Realm. Skyward Sword introduced motion-controlled swordplay and stamina management. Each major console generation brought radical reinvention. Even when games shared elements, they pursued distinct identities through mechanics, structure, and philosophy. The series earned its legendary status not through refinement, but through bold experimentation that sometimes succeeded spectacularly and occasionally stumbled but always pushed forward. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom represent the first time Nintendo built two consecutive mainline Zelda games using the same structural foundation. This intensive iteration produced remarkable results, but it also breaks the pattern that defined the franchise for 3 decades. If history serves as a guide, Nintendo's next move won't be Tears of the Kingdom, but bigger. It'll be something fundamentally different. So what could that look like? What possibilities exist beyond the open-world paradigm that could feel as revolutionary as Breath of the Wild did in 2017? One answer lies in reconsidering what open world actually means. Modern open world design typically prioritizes scale, massive maps filled with activities, collectibles, and points of interest scattered across vast distances. Breath of the Wild succeeded partially because it made traversal itself engaging through climbing, gliding, and environmental interaction. But scale isn't the only approach to player freedom. Consider instead the concept of wide linear or interconnected zones, areas that offer exploration freedom within defined boundaries while maintaining curated progression between regions. Dark Souls pioneered this approach, creating a world that loops back on itself with shortcuts connecting distant areas. Players enjoy freedom within zones while the overall structure guides them through escalating challenges. Metroid Prime achieved something similar in 3 dimensions, offering large explorable regions connected by bottlenecks that require specific abilities to pass. A Zelda game could adopt this philosophy while retaining the series' identity. Imagine Hyrule divided into 5 or 6 major regions, each roughly the size of a single Divine Beast territory from Breath of the Wild. Within each region, players enjoy complete freedom, climbing, exploring, solving environmental puzzles, discovering secrets. But progressing between regions requires specific accomplishments or abilities acquired from dungeons.
This structure provides the satisfaction of open exploration while enabling more focused world building, tighter environmental storytelling, and the sense of expanding capability that defined classic Zelda. Each region could feature unique mechanics or rules that differentiate it from others, perhaps a volcanic region where metal equipment becomes too hot to use, forcing creative problem-solving with other materials, a flooded region where water levels shift with tides, opening and closing paths at different times, a forest where magnetic fields interfere with navigation, requiring players to find landmarks rather than following mini-maps. These regional mechanics would create variety and challenge while maintaining cohesion within each area. The advantage of this approach becomes clear when considering environmental storytelling. Breath of the Wild's Hyrule told stories through ruins and remnants, but its scale sometimes diluted impact. Players might stumble upon a destroyed village, read a few tablets explaining its history, then move on without fully absorbing the tragedy. Focused regions could develop environments more densely, creating spaces where every building, every object placement, every environmental detail contributes to cohesive narrative themes. Look at how effectively specific locations in Breath of the Wild told stories on given focused attention. Lurelin Village felt like a genuine seaside community with defined architecture, visible fishing industry, and NPC routines that brought it to life. The Forgotten Temple conveyed ancient grandeur through its decaying columns and massive goddess statue. Terrytown's construction through side quests created investment in its development. These moments succeeded because they concentrated detail rather than spreading it thin. A more interconnected structure could fill an entire game with moments of comparable density. Instead of scattering 100 shrines across a massive map, imagine 30 substantial dungeons integrated into the environment, some optional, some required, all designed with the care and complexity of traditional Zelda dungeons, but accessible in flexible order within regional constraints. Instead of hundreds of core-up puzzles providing incremental rewards, imagine 50 meaningful secrets that unlock substantial content or abilities. This philosophy doesn't abandon what made Breath of the Wild special. Players still enjoy climbing, creative problem-solving, emergent gameplay, and physics-based interaction. The chemistry engine still enables experimentation, environmental systems still create dynamic moments. The difference lies in density over scale, depth over breadth, curation over procedural generation. Dungeon design specifically could benefit from renewed focus. Breath of the Wild's Divine Beasts and Tears of the Kingdom's temples attempted to bridge classic dungeons and open-world structure,
While mechanically interesting, manipulating entire divine beasts or navigating temples built around specific abilities, they lacked the complexity and distinctiveness that made dungeons memorable in previous games. Ocarina of Time's Forest Temple remains etched in player memory decades later because of its twisted corridors, haunting atmosphere, and spatial puzzles involving rotating rooms. Twilight Princess's Snow Peak ruins surprised players with its cozy mansion aesthetic, hiding dangerous challenges. Skyward Sword's Ancient Cistern juxtaposed serene upper chambers with nightmarish depths. These dungeons functioned as self-contained adventures with unique identities, memorable music, and satisfying boss encounters. A post-open-world Zelda could prioritize dungeons as tentpole experiences rather than abbreviated versions. Each dungeon could take 30 to 60 minutes to complete on first attempt, featuring multiple floors, complex layouts, environmental puzzles, combat challenges, and thematic boss battles. Dungeons could integrate into the overworld seamlessly, visible from outside, requiring exploration to find entrances, and exterior elements hinting at interior themes. The key difference from pre-Breath of the Wild design lies in maintaining player agency. Classic Zelda forced specific dungeon order through item gates. Players couldn't access the Water Temple without the hookshot, couldn't complete the Fire Temple without the Megaton Hammer. A modern approach could gate dungeons by difficulty rather than items, allowing skilled players to tackle challenges in their preferred order, while less confident players follow suggested progression. This philosophy extends to items and abilities. Breath of the Wild replaced traditional items with Sheikah Slate runes available from the start. Tears of the Kingdom continued this approach with Zonai abilities. Both games succeeded by giving players tools that work anywhere, but this design eliminates the satisfaction of finding new items that expand capabilities. Imagine a hybrid approach. Link starts with core movement abilities, climbing, swimming, basic combat, but finds traditional items like the hookshot, bow, boomerang, and bombs that open new tactical options and solve specific puzzle types. These items could have durability or energy systems to maintain resource consideration without removing them permanently. A hookshot with limited charges that regenerate over time provides utility without making it always available. A magic bow that draws from a mana pool encourages strategic use. This creates the best of both worlds, early freedom through core abilities, plus the excitement of discovering new tools that genuinely expand what players can do. Finding the hookshot halfway through the adventure should feel transformative, opening shortcuts throughout previously explored regions and enabling access to areas that were tantalizingly visible but unreachable. Narrative structure could evolve significantly in a more curated framework. Breath of the Wild's non-linear approach empowered players, but fragmented storytelling. Memory sequences appeared in any order, making narrative flow inconsistent. Important revelations might occur early or late, depending on exploration patterns. Character development suffered because encounters happened episodically without guaranteed context. Tears of the Kingdom improved this somewhat with dragon tears that technically could be found in any order, but were numbered, encouraging sequential viewing. Still, the game couldn't assume players experience story beats in intended sequence, limiting narrative complexity and character arc development. A structure with regional progression enables more sophisticated storytelling. The game could present major story beats at specific milestones while maintaining flexibility within those boundaries. Completing the first region unlocks a story sequence that builds on established context. Clearing 3 regions triggers another narrative development that assumes players have seen previous content. This preserves player choice about which regions to tackle and in what order, while ensuring story beats land with intended impact. Character development becomes feasible with this structure. Imagine recurring NPCs who appear throughout the adventure, their storylines developing as players progress. A rival character who starts antagonistic but gradually becomes ally. A companion whose personal quest interweaves with Link's journey. A village elder whose wisdom deepens as players prove themselves. These arcs require assumed progression that pure open-world design cannot guarantee. The villain problem also benefits from structured narrative. Breath of the Wild's Calamity Ganon remained abstract until the final battle, lacking personality or presence throughout the adventure. Tears of the Kingdom improved this significantly by showing Ganondorf in memories and giving him voiced scenes, but he still waited beneath the castle rather than actively opposing Link during the journey.
A more focused structure could feature an antagonist who appears throughout the adventure, confronting players at key moments, adapting strategies based on Link's growing power, creating personal stakes beyond abstract kingdom saving. This doesn't mean returning to the linear boss encounters of older games. The villain could appear in contextual sequences tied to regional completion, creating cat and mouse dynamics that evolve throughout the experience. Think about how effectively Majora's Mask created urgency and presence without constant cutscenes. The moon loomed overhead, growing larger each day. The 3-day cycle meant players witnessed the same NPCs going through their routines, ending in different places depending on intervention. Skull Kid appeared periodically, sometimes taunting Link, sometimes furthering his agenda. This created an antagonist who felt omnipresent without requiring extensive cinematics. A future Zelda could employ similar techniques, an antagonist whose schemes unfold in the background, whose influence is visible through environmental changes, whose presence is felt through NPCs and world state rather than constant direct confrontation. This maintains open exploration while building narrative investment. Gameplay innovation beyond open world design offers tremendous potential. Nintendo's design philosophy emphasizes lateral thinking with withered technology, using existing capabilities in unexpected ways, rather than always pursuing cutting-edge graphics. Applied to Zelda, this suggests mechanics that surprise through creativity rather than raw technical power. Consider enemy ecosystem mechanics that go beyond simple aggression. What if enemies had complex behavioral patterns that players could observe and exploit? Bokoblins might hunt specific animals at dawn, creating opportunities to ambush them when distracted. Lizalfos might be territorial, fighting each other when territories overlap. Lynels could have patrol routes that players must learn and navigate around. This transforms enemies from obstacles into dynamic elements of the environment with exploitable patterns. Or imagine weather and time of day systems that fundamentally affect gameplay rather than providing cosmetic variety. Rain might extinguish fires and make certain enemies retreat to shelter, but it also fills streams and makes water-based puzzles solvable. Night might bring different enemy types, but also allow stealth approaches impossible during day. Storms could charge the Master Sword with lightning energy, temporarily boosting its power. These systems would reward players for understanding and leveraging environmental conditions. Procedural elements could enhance rather than replace designed content. Instead of procedurally generating entire dungeons, what if dungeons featured set layouts but procedurally determined puzzle solutions? The same dungeon visited by different players would have identical architecture but require different approaches to solve, or challenge dungeons that regenerate daily with new configurations, providing endless replayability for players seeking mastery. Cooperative elements present another frontier. The Zelda series has experimented with multiplayer in Four Swords Adventures, and Triforce Heroes, but never in a mainline 3D adventure. A thoughtfully implemented co-op mode where a second player controls a companion character, perhaps Zelda herself with distinct abilities, could create puzzle and combat scenarios designed for teamwork while remaining fully playable solo through AI assistance or companion swapping. This wouldn't fundamentally alter Zelda's identity as a primarily single-player experience, but it would offer an option for shared adventure. Puzzles could have solutions for solo players and alternate solutions leveraging cooperation. Battle could feature mechanics that benefit from coordination but don't require it. The mode would be entirely optional, ensuring traditional solo experiences remain intact while expanding possibilities. The technological capabilities of Nintendo's next console, widely expected to be a Switch successor with significantly enhanced power, enable possibilities beyond current limitations. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom pushed the Switch to its limits, occasionally suffering frame rate drops during intense sequences. More powerful hardware could support larger enemy counts, more complex physics simulations, denser environments, and visual effects that enhance rather than distract from gameplay. But technology serves design rather than leading it. The most important innovations won't be graphical fidelity or processing power, they'll be creative applications of enhanced capabilities to deepen core gameplay. More enemies on screen simultaneously could enable large-scale battles where tactics matter more than reflexes. Complex physics could make construction and environmental puzzles more intricate and satisfying. Dense environments could pack more secrets and storytelling details into smaller spaces. Consider audio technology specifically. The Switch's audio processing limits how many simultaneous sounds can play and what effects can be applied in real time. Next-generation hardware could support fully dynamic orchestral scores that respond to gameplay moment by moment, shifting seamlessly between exploration themes, combat intensifiers, and emotional peaks. Environmental audio could achieve greater fidelity, making forests, dungeons, and villages more immersive through layered soundscapes that respond to Link's actions. Voice acting could expand beyond major story sequences to encompass most NPC interactions. While Link's silence would likely remain, his lack of voice dialogue constitutes part of his identity as player avatar. Voiced NPCs could enhance emotional moments and world building. This represents a significant shift from the series' text-based tradition, but Breath of the Wild already began this evolution. Expanding it thoughtfully could deepen immersion without compromising the pace players control by advancing dialogue at their own speed. The art direction question looms large. Breath of the Wild's aesthetic, inspired by gouache paintings and Studio Ghibli films, defined the game's identity as much as its gameplay. The soft colors, cel-shaded character models, and painterly environments created a distinctive look that set it apart from generic open-world games. Tears of the Kingdom maintained this style, refining rather than reinventing. A new direction for Zelda could justify new visual identity. Wind Waker's cel-shaded oceans initially shocked fans accustomed to Ocarina and Majora's realistic style, but time proved the art direction timeless. Wind Waker looks better today than many contemporary games pursuing photorealism. Twilight Princess's darker, grittier aesthetic served its themes. Skyward Sword's impressionistic watercolor style complemented its skybound setting. The next Zelda could pursue any aesthetic that serves its core vision. A game emphasizing dense and interconnected zones might benefit from more detailed, almost diorama-like environments where every element is crafted with care. A game exploring darker themes could adopt moodier lighting and color palettes. A game set in a technologically advanced Hyrule could blend fantasy and science fiction visual elements. The art direction should emerge from creative vision rather than market expectations or brand consistency.
Music and sound design deserve equal consideration. Koji Kondo's original Legend of Zelda theme remains iconic nearly 4 decades later, but recent games moved away from the series' traditionally melodic scores. Breath of the Wild employed minimalist piano pieces that appeared dynamically based on context, creating contemplative atmosphere. This divided fans. Some appreciated the subtle approach that let environmental audio dominate, others missed the memorable melodies of Ocarina, Majora, and Wind Waker. A future Zelda could find middle ground, creating memorable themes while maintaining dynamic implementation. Regional themes could have distinct melodies that blend and evolve as players explore boundaries. Dungeon music could start subtle and build as players progress deeper, reaching crescendo at boss encounters. The score could acknowledge and incorporate classic Zelda melodies in creative ways. Not just the main theme, but songs like Zelda's Lullaby, Opponent's Song, and Song of Storms that carry emotional weight for longtime fans. Enemy design could evolve beyond the established roster. While bokoblins, moblins, Lizalfos, and other familiar foes provide continuity, new enemy types with unique behaviors would challenge players to adapt tactics. Breath of the Wild introduced some new enemies. Guardians became iconic with their terrifying laser targeting, but many adversaries came from previous games. Tears of the Kingdom added constructs and evolved existing enemies, but didn't fundamentally expand the bestiary. Imagine enemies with weakness and resistance systems that require observation and experimentation to defeat efficiently. Perhaps enemies that phase between physical and ethereal states, requiring specific weapons or tactics depending on current form. Enemies that adapt mid-battle, learning from player strategies and forcing adaptation. Boss encounters that span multiple phases, with environmental changes between each testing different skill sets. The key is ensuring enemy variety serves gameplay depth, rather than just providing visual distinction. Each enemy type should present unique challenges that engage different player skills: timing, positioning, resource management, environmental awareness, tactical planning. This creates combat scenarios that reward mastery while remaining accessible to players who prefer exploration and puzzle solving. Puzzle design beyond physics-based interaction offers rich potential. Breath of the Wild shrines featured environmental puzzles leveraging the chemistry engine and rune abilities. Tears of the Kingdom expanded this with Ultra Hand construction puzzles. Both approaches emphasized creative problem-solving with multiple valid solutions, which represents excellent design philosophy. But puzzle variety could extend to other types. Logic puzzles requiring pattern recognition and deduction. Musical puzzles incorporating sound recognition or rhythm elements. Perspective puzzles where viewing scenes from specific angles reveal solutions. Narrative puzzles requiring attention to NPC dialogue and environmental clues. Traditional block pushing and switch activating puzzles with more complex spatial reasoning challenges. The key is ensuring puzzles feel integrated into the world rather than arbitrary obstacles. Shrine puzzles sometimes felt disconnected from Hyrule itself, abstract challenges in abstract spaces. Environmental puzzles embedded into ruins, caves, and settlements create stronger sense of place and history. Why does this puzzle exist? What purpose did these mechanisms serve before falling into ruin? Answering these questions through design makes puzzles feel meaningful. Progression systems could evolve beyond Breath of the Wild's approach. That game featured hearts, stamina, and inventory expansion as character development, deliberately avoiding traditional RPG stat increases. This kept players focused on skill improvement rather than level grinding. Tears of the Kingdom maintained this philosophy while adding battery capacity for Zonai devices. Future games could expand progression options without becoming stat-heavy RPGs. Perhaps a skill tree system where players choose specializations, combat mastery, stealth expertise, magical aptitude, or survival skills, with meaningful trade-offs between paths. An experienced swordsman might deal more damage but can't learn certain magical abilities. A stealth specialist moves silently and deals critical damage when undetected but lacks raw combat power. This creates distinct playstyles while maintaining Zelda's action-adventure identity. Players still control Link directly, combat remains real-time and skill-based, and success depends on player ability rather than statistical advantages. But character builds add variety and encourage different approaches to challenges, supporting replayability. Crafting and resource management could achieve better balance than recent games. Breath of the Wild's cooking system provided buffs and healing through collected ingredients, creating incentive to gather materials while exploring. Tears of the Kingdom added Fuse, which combined weapons with materials for enhanced effects. Both systems worked, but could feel overwhelming with hundreds of materials and recipes to track. A more streamlined approach might offer fewer materials with clearer purposes. Instead of dozens of mushroom varieties, perhaps 5 types with distinct, predictable effects. Instead of complex recipes requiring specific ingredient combinations, simpler systems where categories matter more than specific items. Any fish plus any herb creates stamina recovery. Any meat plus any spice creates defense boost. This maintains gathering incentives and crafting depth while reducing inventory management busywork. The economics of items and equipment deserve reconsideration. Breath of the Wild's weapon durability system sparked debate. Some players appreciated the encouragement to experiment with different weapons, others found it frustrating to lose favorite equipment. Tears of the Kingdom partially addressed this by making weapon crafting more involved and customizable. Alternative approaches could satisfy different player preferences. Perhaps a hybrid system where basic weapons have durability, but special legendary weapons are permanent fixtures with different upgrade paths. Or durability that depletes much slower, but with repair options available at settlements, creating strategic decisions about when to use powerful equipment versus preserving it for major challenges. The goal is balancing resource management that encourages tactical thinking against frustration of losing tools mid-combat. Side quests and optional content require meaningful design rather than checklist padding. Breath of the Wild featured memorable side quests like Terrytown's construction, the Eventide Island survival challenge, and various character-driven stories. It also had numerous simple fetch quests and kill target tasks that provided minimal engagement. Tears of the Kingdom improved side quest quality overall, but still included substantial filler content. Future Zelda games could prioritize quality over quantity in optional content. 50 substantial side quests with unique scenarios, character development, and meaningful rewards would provide more value than 200 repetitive tasks.
Each side quest could tell a small story, introduce interesting mechanics, or reveal world-building details. Rewards should feel significant, unique equipment, permanent abilities, or narrative payoffs rather than incremental currency gains.
Collectibles similarly benefit from purposeful design. Breath of the Wild's 900 Korok seeds created discovery moments throughout exploration, but the reward, expanded inventory, became increasingly marginal as players found more. Tears of the Kingdom's cave exploration and well investigations provided better rewards, but sometimes felt like checklist completion. What if collectibles had tiered rewards that felt substantial at every milestone? Finding 10 rare treasures unlocks a new ability. 20 treasures reveal hidden lore. 30 treasures grant access to a secret area. This maintains collection incentive while ensuring effort feels rewarded proportionally. The collectibles themselves should vary in difficulty to find, some obvious, some hidden, some requiring puzzle solving, creating varied challenge levels. Photography and documentation mechanics could expand player expression while serving gameplay purposes. Breath of the Wild's camera rune enabled screenshots and tracked Hyrule compendium entries. Tears of the Kingdom maintained this with minor enhancements. A dedicated photo mode with composition tools, filters, and effects would enable creative documentation of adventures while encouraging players to appreciate environmental artistry. Beyond screenshots, imagine a journal system where players document discoveries, NPC interactions, and personal observations. This could function as player-driven quest tracking and lore compilation, creating personalized records of each playthrough. Sharing these journals online could foster community discussion and comparison of different player experiences. Accessibility features represent crucial consideration for modern game design. Recent Zelda games included some options, control remapping, motion control toggles, limited visual assists, but could expand significantly. Difficulty options or assist modes for players who struggle with combat, colorblind modes ensuring puzzles and UI elements remain distinguishable, text-to-speech for dialogue and descriptions, visual cues supplementing audio information, gameplay speed adjustments for players requiring more reaction time. These features make games more inclusive without compromising design vision for players who don't need them. Options can be granular, allowing players to customize experiences to their needs rather than choosing between preset difficulty tiers. Modern game design should welcome all players who want to experience the adventure, regardless of physical capabilities. Replayability through variation could extend longevity beyond single playthroughs. New Game Plus modes that remix enemy placements, alter puzzle solutions, or add challenge conditions. Randomizer modes that shuffle item locations and dungeon elements. Boss rush modes for combat enthusiasts. These options let players who complete the main adventure continue engaging with the game in fresh ways. Some players will only experience the core story once. Others will sink hundreds of hours into mastery and experimentation. Catering to both groups requires core experience that satisfies casual players while including depth and options that reward dedication. Neither group should feel their preferences are wrong or unsupported. Community features could enhance single-player experiences without requiring multiplayer. Asynchronous elements like those in Dark Souls, leaving messages for other players, seeing ghost traces of their actions, or providing indirect assistance, could translate to Zelda. Imagine hints left by other players about hidden secrets, phantom traces showing creative contraption designs, or statues commemorating players who achieved difficult challenges. These features preserve solo experience while creating connection to the broader community. User-generated content presents opportunities and risks. A robust system for creating and sharing challenge dungeons or puzzle rooms could provide endless content. However, quality control becomes challenging, and user-generated content might dilute the carefully crafted experience that defines Nintendo's design philosophy. Any implementation would need careful curation, rating systems, and clear separation between official and community content. The question of where Zelda goes after open world ultimately returns to the series' core identity. What makes a Zelda game distinctly Zelda, beyond superficial elements like the Master Sword and Triforce? The answer lies in principles rather than specifics.
exploration that rewards curiosity, puzzles that respect player intelligence, combat that balances skill and strategy, a world that feels cohesive and purposeful, progression through gained ability rather than numerical statistics, and the sense that adventure awaits around every corner. These principles can manifest in countless forms. They existed in the original Legend of Zelda's single-screen rooms and scrolling overworld. They drove Ocarina of Time's revolutionary 3D design. They powered Wind Waker's oceanic exploration. They guided Breath of the Wild's open-world reinvention. They could inspire whatever comes next, regardless of whether it's open world, interconnected zones, linear progression, or something entirely unexpected. Nintendo's track record proves they understand this. Every major Zelda title takes risks, tries new approaches, and sometimes divides fans before ultimately earning respect. They could take the safe path, make Breath of the Wild 3 with a new map and abilities. Many studios would choose safety, but Nintendo's legacy stems from creative bravery, from asking what if and following through even when the answer seems impossible. The future of Zelda isn't about bigger maps or more abilities or photorealistic graphics. It's about capturing the feeling that made players fall in love with the series in the first place. The thrill of discovery, the satisfaction of solving puzzles, the triumph of overcoming challenges, and the joy of adventures where anything feels possible. Whether that happens in sprawling open worlds, tightly designed zones, or formats not yet imagined doesn't matter, as long as the core spirit remains intact. The Legend of Zelda has survived and thrived for 40 years by refusing to stagnate. Link has swung his sword in 2D, 3D, realistic graphics, cel-shaded oceans, Twilight Realms, Sky Islands, and underground depths. He's solved environmental puzzles, musical riddles, time paradoxes, construction challenges, and motion-controlled combat. The series reinvents itself while remaining unmistakably Zelda through every transformation. Open world isn't Zelda's final form because Zelda doesn't have a final form. It has a spirit, a commitment to adventure, discovery, and the belief that players deserve experiences that challenge and delight in equal measure. That spirit can manifest anywhere, in any structure, through any mechanics that serve it well. The real question isn't what comes after open world, it's what impossible thing Nintendo will attempt next that everyone else considers too risky, too different, too far from established formula. It's what innovation will seem controversial at announcement, revolutionary at release, and essential in retrospect. It's how they'll make players feel like that first moment stepping out of the Cave of Resurrection and seeing Hyrule stretching to the horizon, except completely different. Because when Nintendo asks where Zelda goes next, they're not really asking what structure to use or which mechanics to implement. They're asking how to recapture magic, how to make players feel wonder, how to prove that after decades of adventures, the greatest one is always ahead. And if history teaches anything, it's that betting against their ability to answer that question has never paid off.